Good evening, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live, and I have on Pastor Anthony this evening. Pastor Anthony, thank you for joining me. It is, of course, a pleasure to have you on, and I always appreciate, especially when we do these things together, because you really bundle of information, and I wanted to talk with you about China, what's going on, what's China really up to, things like that. If you would first share with people how they can follow the work that you do, and we'll put that in the description below for you guys as well. Go ahead, Anthony.
All right. Well, as always, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on your channel and to be able to take time to speak to you and to your audience here. So we're always grateful when we can come on and be a part of what you guys are doing here at Israeli News Live. And yeah, you guys can find me. We're on YouTube, DailyExcellence. We have our main channel here. We have a backup channel called DE Studios, which we feature a lot of mics from around the world's content there. We're also available on Rumble and Patreon. Same name, DailyExcellence. We broadcast live on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock with I'm trying to remember what I do. Oh yeah, Tuesday. It's Tuesday Night Live with myself, and we go over current events, space weather, earthquakes, things like that. And then we broadcast on Wednesday evenings as well with a segment called Pastor Talk. That's where me and my wife we get on and we do devotionals with everyone. Kind of a good family night. Pray for everyone online, which we've seen a lot of great testimonies from those prayer, a lot of answered prayer. We've seen people get healings. We had one person who was on the brink of death. We prayed for him that night. The next day they went home. I mean, stuff like that. So God's definitely answering prayers on that segment. And then, we do special broadcasts with, various channels, and of course, you've been a part of several of those broadcasts. And then, of course, what we seem to be famous for is, the work that we do with Mike from Council of Time and his permission to allow us to broadcast things on YouTube. We're always grateful for the ministry that Council of Time does and being able to do that. So we're kind of into everything, it seems like.
Well, I tell you what, Anthony, and those that are listening, you can look in the link below there. You'll be able to get all that information that Anthony just shared with you. Before we get into the issue about China, can we, if you want to take and give people a little bit of update, we mentioned BP Earthwatch. Jesse was in your chat room just recently, and I don't know if he joined on with you or if he's going to join on with you, talking about the grand solar minimum. If you want to talk a little bit about that, bring us up to speed on what you know on those issues there. I've kind of been out of the loop in that area. I shouldn't be, because I know that there's very serious things going on. I know one of the latest updates I had gotten, and I actually looked into this because I'd heard that Mike was talking about, I think in Paul's meeting that he was doing online, was going to give some time frames of being able to see the binary system coming up this year. Mm-hmm. And other than being told that there are some very significant things coming up this year on the end that I have here, I still was not giving any specific dates, just saying that there are some very significant things that we can anticipate. So share with me what your knowledge is on that right now.
Yeah, BP Earthwatch, he was in the channel, and I just invited him on, and I think he did reply back to me by email, and so I've sent him what I would like to discuss with him. So I'm still waiting on a reply, but it's looking like we're probably going to do a video together on the grand solar minimum. To be honest, I haven't done too much research with that as of late, but I do know that supposedly, and this is why I'm asking BP to come on, from what I understand, leading to the grand solar minimum, which minimum being lack of sun activity, each cycle was supposed to be diminishing cycle 23 was not supposed, it was diminishing. Cycle 24 was diminishing. Now we're in cycle 25, and it's not diminishing as people had suspected it would. And part of that is, from what Mike from CoT would say, that's due to the effects of Planet X and the different system coming in, kind of messing with our sun and making it more active than it should be. The idea behind a grand solar minimum, so to speak, is to, with a lack of activity from the sun, we get a higher rays of gamma rays here on the Earth, higher, what's the word I'm looking for? Not infrared, we get higher radiation. Of course, those things, especially the gamma rays, tend to breed more in the cloud coverage. Volcanic activity begins to explode a lot more. Earthquake activity tends to pick up. And this is generally because the Earth begins cooling. And some speculate that because we get more ice buildup, which puts more pressure on the poles. This is my kind of a crash course into that. But I've heard conflicting reports to this because of what we're going through and the effects of Planet X, that we may not actually experience our cycle, because these things run in cycles. Everyone knows the sun revolves in an 11-year cycle, but then there's a 24-year cycle, there's a 1,000-year cycle, there's a 2,500-year cycle. And so we're kind of Planet X, from what I understand, is messing up our cycle period right now. And so I don't quite understand the fullness of it all. I don't know if once we get out of cycle 25, because we haven't even hit the max yet, and we're breaking records right now. So I don't know, what cycle 26 is going to look like. I don't know what the off period is going to look like to this, or if we even get an off period with, Planet X lurking around. So I'm like you, I got a lot of questions myself concerning this, because what I did know and what I thought I knew has actually kind of, in some ways, gotten erased, so to speak. So I don't know if that really answers your question or is helping you out any.
What do you know, Anthony, about, where they were reporting back earlier here in December about this massive hole in the sun, a coronal hole in the sun? There were, we've seen the images of that, where it's like, I forget how many Jupiters could fit in this hole. It was so massive. And
that was an insane
what
number.
you may know about that.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I think it followed on the heels of a pretty significant explosion on the sun that did hit Earth, and caused some shortwave radio outages and earthquakes and things like that. It was like there was a mass ejection just before that hole opened up. And so, I don't really know exactly how that got there. I can only speculate that was probably what was left once there was that mass ejection from the sun, once that filament had left. The idea is that when we see these CMEs and these flares come off the sun, some of it is supposed to retract back in to the sun, so we don't always see the full brunt of it leaving. But on this one, particularly, the full brunt, the filament did separate from the sun and did not come back on itself, which is what left that massive hole that we saw. And of course, because of that hole, there was a lot of energy that flew in our direction. And of course, we had auroras both on the northern and some southern hemisphere showing up in places that don't normally get them. And so that's pretty much about the extent of what I know concerning that.
I was thinking because there was a German scientist that had said to me, and this has been more than a year ago, he said there's going to come a time, scientifically speaking, where the sun will stop shining for a period of time. And I remember asking him, I said, are you serious? They're like, the sun would stop shining. How could that even possibly be?
Mm-hmm.
And he was explaining to me that the sun goes through cycles, and he said there comes a time where the sun literally, it's like it's regrouping itself. And he said they anticipate this, that this will happen, that he said it won't be like a total zero sunlight, but it'll go extremely dim because it's re-energizing itself for its next long journey of burning, or whatever the case may be. And of course, I always just kind of pass that off as being really about the dumbest thing I ever heard from a scientist, although I greatly respect the scientist. But then, you see this, they show the images of the sun in this massive, massive hole. 60 Earths could fit in this hole. That's how big it is, and clearly, a huge gaping portion of the sun just gone. I'm like, is this what happens? Is this, the type stuff that he's talking about? I mean, granted, not only is it a hole, but there's nothing burning in that hole. So
it could be the, I know that Mike has talked about, with the introduction of these new planetary system coming in, the photons being redirected, which would move the light away from Earth into a different direction, which would bring us a period of darkness, but we would still receive, we would still receive the radiation that would give us the heat. I guess I forgot what it was called, but I'm not saying that's what happened here at all, but as you talk about scientists is referring to it, sun up for a period of time. That's what kind of jogged that in my mind as you were speaking.
Okay, that would make sense then, and I think that would probably line up more with what Harold had said to me, that it, from the way Mike is describing that that would be the reason why we would not, because he told me, he said you're going to have several days where there'll be no light, and he said, and when he talks, he talks like a scientist, he's just very calm, very collective, but everything is very scientific and normally words that are like, way over my head. It's like a kindergartner trying to talk to a college student. There's just no way for me to keep up with it. So, all right, we will move out of this arena there because, like you said, Anthony, you and I are not, we're not up to speed on this. Like a lot of these other guys are.
But, I'm hoping the BP Earthwatch will get me up to speed, and that's what I'm trying to get.
There you go. Yeah, Jesse is normally up to speed too. He really is. Jesse. I really tremendously appreciate Jesse. I appreciate the work that he does. He's just very sound. He just tells you just like it is. Doesn't beat around the bush. Amazing guy. I really appreciate Jesse a lot. All right, let's get into this then. China. And this is the big issue going on right now. I guess, I want to say it was about 2 years ago. I'm just guesstimating at this point right now. Before we ever heard the first word on the news about China taking Taiwan down, I was dealing with a meeting with some friends in Washington, and they told me then that China was going down. That China was going to take Taiwan down. That it would be something that would be in the near future. At that time, we really were anticipating within a year's time. That time came and went, but even before it came and went, I was getting updates about they're pushing it back. And the strange thing is, our government always knew that it wasn't yet. It's going to be a little further back, Well, that's because the Biden administration has been accused of being involved in that process. Biden had even met with the CEOs of the corporations in Taiwan, gave them, quote unquote, 2 years to get your assets out of Taiwan because we're going to lose Taiwan.
Yeah.
I had reports from friends in Kansas, big businesses there that knew very well that was true. They were able to confirm it. They had companies coming from Taiwan that were setting up our operation back here in the U.S. I was told that China would not only take down Taiwan, but China would also challenge our hegemony of the entire Pacific region, and that they would be going after the Philippines, shortly thereafter Taiwan. And then I got the report just recently that in order to prevent Trump from ever getting back in office, they're going to make sure that we get into some kind of conflict with Taiwan, and that Taiwan before the election, China before the election, no, I'm sorry, I need to correct that. I think I said we're going to get in conflict with Taiwan. No, we're getting in conflict with China over Taiwan.
Yeah.
That is anticipated to take place before the election. And it is anticipated that China will go after Taiwan, not only Taiwan now, but Indonesia as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of crazy things are going on, and I wanted to get any perspective that you may have on this as well, Anthony, to share with us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I got a few thoughts on this. I've always said that from the beginning when this went out, that I didn't think when China takes Taiwan, because we know they're going to, and if you don't believe us, ask Hong Kong, okay? Because China took Hong Kong and we didn't do anything. We didn't protect the people of Hong Kong. We didn't defend them. We let China take it, okay? And so basically let that serve what happened to the people of Hong Kong and what took place. Let that serve as an example of what's about to take place with Taiwan. They're going to take it without a shot being fired, okay? That's just my personal opinion on this. As you've already stated, these plans have been in motion for the last couple of years. I would almost argue that they've probably been in motion since 2020, in my personal opinion, because, and I only state that because here in Michigan, there was a chip shortage, which we get those chips to run these vehicles because GM's in our backyard. We got Ford that's in our backyard. We got a lot of automotive industry up here. We had fields and fields of vehicles sitting all over the place because we couldn't get any chips made. Well, those chips come from Japan. They come from Taiwan. And so what happened is our governor, through legislation or whatever, got a factory started here in Michigan, and we're producing our own chips now. Next thing I know, Arizona is doing the exact same thing. Now we got a place in Arizona. We may have other places around the nation, but we're now starting to produce our own stuff over here that we would normally get from Taiwan. All right. And so I think that the infrastructure and the roads already been laid for some of this stuff to come in fruition for whenever Taiwan or whenever China takes over Taiwan, that we're not put in such a bad imposition to not be able to take care of ourselves. It's like we're preparing for it. And I remember Anthony Blinken coming out and stating that, that should something happen, that basically we're not going in. We're not putting soldiers out there, and I remember Anthony Blinken coming out and saying that. And so, our administration's pretty much tied with Japan. The one thing that I did find that was kind of interesting, and this is the kind of latest news, we haven't seen a whole lot of involvement with the United States getting, with putting any real pushback against China concerning Taiwan. I mean, we've ran some drills, we've saved face, that kind of thing. But when this issue with the Philippines happened, where China was trying to take over one of their ships had one of their main military or government officials on there, we saw some pushback from the U.S. government on this one, some pretty strong pushback, actually. And matter of fact, it was almost as if they were holding China to the fire by their ankles, which was pretty interesting to see that kind of reaction come from the Philippines, but not come from Taiwan. So the question that I would probably throw back in your direction is, what's so special about the Philippines that's not as special about Taiwan?
That's a good question, is why the Philippines? Because Taiwan, we know why. Taiwan
Right.
is the economic powerhouse, the central, it's what China needs for its economy to flourish, is to get a hold of Taiwan, because all these industries that have been created in Taiwan by the United States
Mhm.
is why the Chinese are wanting to go after Taiwan. But the Philippines, I really do not know, other than China gaining control. That's what I was always told, that China, their purpose for gaining control of these areas is because they would become the new global superpower.
Mhm.
And we see more and more too, Xi Jinping is becoming a statesman of sorts. He's like a U.S. president would. He's becoming more expected to be involved in negotiations and settling disputes. They offered to negotiate the Ukrainian crisis between Russia and Ukraine, or really NATO as far as that goes. And we're seeing too more diplomatic moves, like in the case, oddly enough, the Chinese have worked with the Taliban more recently with the Silk Road Initiative,
Mhm.
wanting to include them in their ancient Silk Road, claiming that the Taliban or Afghanistan used to be part of that actual road itself. And so, and at the same time, we have Italy starting to pull out of that. So it's kind of odd as we look at this to see, typically some of the countries that would be considered quote unquote terrorist countries that are becoming more and more part of this new economic system, while the existing, uh, you know, what we would consider to be the Western type nations, such as Italy, suddenly backing out of these new economic system that China has been building. So, you kind of can't but wonder what's really going on behind the scenes, and of course, with China's, taking over those areas, the next thing is going to be the Middle East. That's going to be another place that they're going to be challenging the hegemony of the United States, is in the Middle East. Their troops fighting in Iraq. You'll have them in Iran. You're going to have them in Syria.
Mhm.
And back 2 years ago, I was being told at that time that China was already inside of Syria. They were already having skirmishes in Iraq. They were practicing getting their forces prepared. Do you have any information on any of these things?
Not so much on China and the Middle East. Eh, like you, I've heard for several years that they've been over there. They've really have infiltrated Africa as well. They've been doing a lot of economical reforms and things like that in Africa, and trying to bring those nations that are like third world nations to at least a second world rating. We've seen a lot of resources going from China into Africa on that one, as well as the Middle East. The only thing that I can kind of speculate on two different fronts from two different perspectives, and this is just me talking. Is one, it's kind of if you think about how China's doing this, it's really a playbook from the United States. Because when the United States was inserting its power, that's exactly the same thing we did. We went into every country in the Middle East. We went and set up shop in Africa. We went and went to every corner of the world, because that's what you do if you're the superpower. You're everywhere. You're kind of the world's police, so to speak, and we see, as we're pulling out, we're leaving vacuums everywhere we go. China's coming in, and they're filling those voids. The second perspective on this, and I'm just throwing this out there just to see what bites, is that you have to understand that China's got a lot invested in the United States, and the Chinese know that the United States has got some real enemies, especially in the Middle East, that would love nothing more than to watch us go boom. Okay, and that's not in the best interest of China. because China, like a good investor, wants to recoup their investments. Okay, so you can't recoup a investment if that investment's completely destroyed. So what better way to make sure that investment stays intact than to go out and begin to, conquer other places, or begin to make sure that these people stay put, that they mind their business, they stay in their lane and not get involved in what China's essentially trying to do. There's that particular aspect of all of this as well, getting involved in the Middle East, trying to broker some peace deals here and there. Really is just kind of keeping the animals at bay, so to speak, so that they don't mess up whatever China's got planned for us here in the U.S.
Well, it does seem that China has plenty planned here for the United States. And the sad thing is the Biden administration on multiple occasions has been accused of being complicit with China in some of those plans. And that includes whether we go into anarchy in this nation, civil war, civil unrest, whatever you want to call it. And then turns out that at the end of the day, the Chinese will come in to help the U.S. government police the people here and bring things under control. I'm very concerned about those actions there. And quite frankly, as I watch the rhetoric that's going on, even as the election is getting closer and closer, the fears that I see, and I'm watching the media like MSNBC, I may not agree with everything politically that goes on in the Republican Party, by no means, but at the same time, I'm watching a news organization that has become so biased in their reporting. Instead of reporting objectively, everything is just one-sided. And even if you even say something like that here on YouTube's platform, you'll be shut down. You can't even say anything about what happened, we'll say 4 years ago. And now I'm watching free speech be totally silenced. As even Giuliani, as he was, the court found him, liable for paying out this massive defamation fine for these two election workers that were working at the polls in Georgia. And of course, all he does is afterwards he makes a statement about it, claiming that he has more evidence and things, and that it wasn't the end, and that he had told the truth. I don't know the answers to all of that, but it's interesting then how that he gets hit with another lawsuit.
Right.
And this time they're trying to push, just in other words, you're not even allowed to speak. I guess my concern is I see I know I'm kind of going a little bit away from China, which is, I guess, okay in this regards here, but it's at the same time, it's still dealing with China because, like I said, China is going to be the police force of this nation when we go into anarchy in this country. But I see that coming, and I see them setting up the nation right now for that by causing such a division and causing all of this obvious bias in the media. And yet they're claiming that independent media and social media, or people on social platforms and stuff, that they're the ones that are all biased. They're all the ones that are spreading false information and lies and things like that. You just can't get any objective reporting anymore. Your thoughts on that, Anthony?
Well, I was going to say that, and this is breaking news. This just happened right before you and I got on here to do this. But Trump is disqualified from the 2024 ballot. Colorado Supreme Court rules the clause of the 14th Amendment applies. So the court declares Trump ineligible for presidency under the U.S. Constitution insurrection clause. He is removed from the state's 2024 presidential primary ballot. So officially, if you live in Colorado, you will not be allowed to vote for Donald Trump in this coming election.
And the question will be how many more states will follow suit.
Exactly.
In that, and I'm sure that Colorado has set a precedent in doing that, and there will no doubt be other states that will follow suit as well. And the question would be, would the Supreme Court step in? And would they, if they step in, will they overrule the state of Colorado? Or will they go in favor? Or will they abstain?
And that would be like the beginning of what you were talking about. If we see this, other states do this, and he gets removed. You only need a handful of states to actually do this to make it impossible for him to win. And
exactly.
if that happens, you've got a very large, MAGA base that I would suspect probably not going to sit idly by this time around. And so then that kind of, cycles back around to what you were just talking about, with civil unrest, anarchy, and all that other, all those other things where we would need foreign powers to come in and, take care of that. Because, our military is so stretched out there, they're not going to bring those guys back home for this.
And they're not legally allowed to bring back the military of the United States military on its own soil against its own citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard that's why Biden administration would look to an outside source, and China has been chosen to be that outside source. Granted, this country is the most armed country in the world, especially for private citizens. And the whole objective of a new world order is to disarm the world, disarm this nation. By the way, that's one reason, and a lot of people don't realize it with Israel, that's one reason why you see when they were handing out weapons to the people in the West Bank, Israelis don't even realize they're being played. I heard Mike from around the world make the comment not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago maybe, that Israel will end up being disarmed. Mm-hmm. And I can certainly see that, but it's going to happen to America as well. Mm-hmm. And in order to disarm a nation, you have to create the right scenario to make it look like you've got to justify that disarming. And at the same time, as they're disarming, whether it be Israel or the United States, in either case, I also believe that it plays into the New World Order agenda. It will play into a what I would call a beast kingdom agenda. When I say that, what I'm talking about is that clearly when Christ returns, we will see Scripture fulfilled. They beat their swords into plowshares. We see that peace that will reign on the earth. But if it's not here yet and Christ has not come, and you want to bring a false Messiah or somebody who you think is the Messiah, regardless of where or how that comes into play, you still have to then manufacture events to fit the narrative that you want to portray to the world. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, if people don't accept that Jesus Christ was truly the Messiah that was sent, then there's going to have to be someone that's going to project that to the world that indeed, if their version of the Messiah is here, they've also got to have peace is being brought to the world. And with peace comes to disarming of the nations. And so I feel like that's also something else that's playing into this. And I don't think people realize that they're being played.
Yeah. It's going to be, I don't know how they're going to pull that off, especially here in the United States. As you've already stated, we're so heavily armed as private citizens, to actively go from home to home, to even pool to, confiscate, our Second Amendment rights, so to speak, would be one daunting task. You don't even have enough military to pull something like that off, in the United States. even if you use and I've heard of the technology that they would use, using certain satellites, drones that can identify the type of metals and things like that. That would identify as, weaponry, things like that. They would be able to identify homes that have this. But even still, even if you identify it, you get a nice database that shows every address in America that has it. You still got to approach that person to get it out, and I just, that's going to be, without, going any further in that, that's just going to be quite the task.
It would definitely be a task, and it would probably really take a very drastic situation to happen. And that's my concern. As I'm watching the events happening, and of course, watching the election that would be coming up, what the potential risks are that are involved. And as you bring out this new news from Colorado, already saying that, okay, now Trump's not going to be on a ballot, it does not look good at all. I can just, it's almost like the handwriting's on the wall. You know where this is headed to.
Yeah.
I sat in an attorney's office recently, and we got on this very subject, and even the subject of the people that are in the movement where they're renouncing their citizenship, becoming sovereign citizens. We were discussing this, and and the attorney said, we do live in a America is a nation that is based on a voluntary status. We volunteer to elect our officials, to let them choose the laws. We go by those laws. If we break those laws, we are basically volunteering to every aspect is a voluntary situation. He says, now, as long as the government has enough authority and enough power, if somebody tries to go against that, even though it's a voluntary system, they'll just crush them down and make sure that they stay in line.
Yeah.
He said, but now the sovereign citizen movement has grown to such a power in the United States, not only in numbers, but in economics, etc. He said that they're a power to be reckoned with. And he said, quite frankly, and he brought up the issue with Trump. He says, he said, I think he was very supportive of Trump his first time around. He said, but I'm a little bit more nervous this time. He said, because I realize that this could end up turning into a very bad situation. He said, for example, he said, he said, they're out to try to get him. And he said, and so if he chooses that he's not going to go along with that system, and he's not going to be arrested, he's not going to allow them to take him if he is found to some point, let's say, guilty of something where they would say, okay, it was a crime, you're going to jail. He said, not only that, he's got the support of the American people in such numbers that are armed. He said, it will literally rip this country apart. And when he said that, I realized what he said and what he meant by all these things. But Anthony, I could not help but believe this is playing in the very hands of what the globalists are wanting in the first place. Their whole objective has been to break this country up. I think I was told at one point, it was 5 regions, maybe 4, and they were going to have what they call super governors.
I was just getting ready to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're headed there. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, Anthony, and we'll kind of
you talk about the globalists, and I wanted to kind of flip the coin on this, because just as much as they don't want Trump in, but I can guarantee you Biden's not going to be in either. And matter of fact, his reluctancy to bow out and to not run has caused him problems. The first warning was all these dossiers and documents that came up. They found in his house, in his Corvette, and in the White House, and all this other stuff. And that didn't deter him or anything like that. But now, I think it was last night, somebody hit his car. You know, they hit his motorcade and he was fine. And you know, he wasn't uninjured or anything. And you know, somebody was like, "Oh well, you know, it must have just been a fluke thing." And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't think that's a fluke thing. I'm Italian, and I know how that runs. And I said that wasn't a fluke thing; that was a warning. And I think you know, just as much as they're trying to get rid of one candidate, they're trying to get rid of another one too. One they're trying to lock up, and the other one, it looks like what it looks like based on last night's events. I won't go any further than that, but you know, I can see either event, you know, however it shakes down, it's going to cause an issue because you know, if you know Trump goes out, his supporters come out, they're going to rampage. The other person goes out, they're going to rampage and blame it on the Trump supporters. Okay. So it's really a catch-22. It's a catch-22 situation, double-edged sword type scenario that we're looking at. And honestly, I don't see a way out of this. I just don't, you know, unless somehow, some miraculous way, you know, it would have to be a God thing to intervene that we actually make it to the presidential selection this year. And they just happen to bring a completely different candidate in, and just dismiss both of them through, you know, using voting machines or whatever. I don't know. But other than that,
may be the only solution, Anthony, is to
Yeah.
literally disqualify both of them as candidates.
Yeah, because I just don't see, if they don't, I just don't see a way out of this. And I think the government, those who are, you know, those who are still left that semi care for the country still, I think they're realizing that too. Like, we're in a real big mess here. And it's a very interesting thing, but you're right. It is what the globalists want. You know, they do want this country to fall. They want us to split up, and you know, that's what I was just getting ready to say. You know, we do know of a plan to split the nation up. I believe it is 5 different sectors. Each sector would be governed with its own capital and its own government. It would be instead of the United States of America, it would be just the United States, or United Nations, or something, some along those lines, or United America. It would be a different name than what we're used to, because it's you know, you're going to go from, you know, 50 states to 5 sectors, so to speak. You know, they're going to have to change the name. It's even speculated, and a lot of what I'm saying here is on the plane of speculation, you know, a hypothesis. You know, I don't have facts. I mean, I'm just being honest. Right. I don't have facts to back any of this stuff up. Okay. So don't run with it and say, oh, this is 100% because Anthony said it. No. So, but it is speculated that, you know, everybody might get a piece of the pie. All right. Some sectors may be liberal. So if you feel that way, want to live that way, that's your spot. Some may be conservative. If you want to live that way and you feel that way, then that's your spot. You know, there is that idea of just splitting everybody. And if you feel this way, you're going here. And if you feel this way and believe that, you're going here, and the two shall never mingle. You know, there is that theory out there as well.
And that can be concerning, because what if you don't fall in either one of the camps? Where do you go?
I guess you got to choose your poison, man. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's another big concern as well. So anyway, listen, Anthony, we appreciate you so much coming on tonight and discussing these issues here. And if you would just kind of remind people just your website and your YouTube channel where they can find you at again. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, just I appreciate being here, and yeah, you guys can find us. You know, once again, DailyExcellence. Just, you know, go to YouTube, type it in, we'll pop right on up. go over there, subscribe to the channel, and be a part of what we're doing. We're also on Rumble. We're really easy to find on Rumble, and we're on Patreon. You can join us for free even on Patreon if you choose to. We also have a few Telegram channels. We share news feeds, things like that. And then we do have a website. It's www.dailyexcellence.org, where we have a plethora of conservative news outlets that all come together there. And it's updated in real time there. We also, for those of you who maybe you're not able to keep up with the news at home, you don't have cable or whatever, satellite. We have channels on there that are streaming on there. So, like we have Mike Lydell's channel over there that streams. We have the Newsmax and things like that, TV and religious broadcasting channels that people can watch that stream over there. So you can do those things, and I do appreciate being on here. And look forward to working with you real soon, because I believe we're going to have you over on my channel on June 2nd.
Sounds great. And
Yep.
Anthony, thank you so much for being on with us tonight. And we thank you for watching and for joining us and just examining some of these perspectives and things to think about. I'm
Yes.
Steve, and you're watching Israeli News Live. Good evening.